Welcome to Coastside Poetry. Thanks to those of you who zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet either physically or virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken poetry. I'm Diane Moomey, and Steve Long and I are your hosts this evening. Our featured poet event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak. So anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome the current Poet Laureate of Belmont, Jacki Rigoni. Jacki lives with her 3 children in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she serves as Poet Laureate of Belmont, California. She has a master's degree in English from the University of California, Berkeley, and is a credentialed teacher. A finalist for the 2018 Francine Ringold Awards for New Writers, her poems appear in Nimrod International Journal, Moon City Review, anthologies, and permanent public art installations. Jacki writes on her site, womanuprising.com, and facilitates courses for women at womanu.com. Her debut poetry collection, 7 Skirts, has just been released by Paloma Press. Please welcome Jacki Rigoni.
Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you, Coastside Poetry, and also to Steve Long for inviting me to read with you tonight. I have attended some of the Coastside Poetry gatherings back when we were all meeting in 3 dimensions, and I've really always been amazed by the lively community and the quality poetry from all of you. So I'm delighted to be here. Diane and Steve do such an amazing job of bringing together some of the best poets in our area together. And so thank you all for being here again as I read from my debut collection, 7 Skirts. I've found that it helps to have some context for these poems. So what you need to know before I start reading is that 8 years ago, my then husband was arrested for video recording under a minor's skirt. That was just the beginning of the unraveling of what I thought my life was. And it took me years to make sense of that event and the following discoveries. Part of my sense-making and healing process took shape in poems. And in so many ways, the speaker in these poems was mending before I was. I was rooting for her, imagining what I wanted for her. And in that regard, I would like to set the intention for all of you tonight that it is my hope that you can take away a phrase or 2 that makes you feel less alone, no matter what hard thing you might be going through. My first poem is This Struggle, an Offering. On stony knees before you, genuflex a mountain, not asking to be climbed, while you stand there, longing for heaven. I'd like to introduce this next poem by giving a land acknowledgement that I am coming to from Belmont, which is unceded Ramaytush Ohlone territory. And if you're in Half Moon Bay, that's probably the case for you too. And so what you need to know is that the bedrock mortar that is mentioned in this is a hand-worn depression in a rock that our local Ohlone peoples and other indigenous groups used to grind acorns, and it had other uses as well, such as collecting water. This is called 9 Acres of Oak Chaparral. 1. We closed the sale and rerouted there with the black acorns while the next year of seasons stop-motioned around us. We tracked Scorpius across southern night, foraged miner's lettuce and yerba buena for salad, dug up soap root just to see if it could lather our hair. The city could no longer stonewall so much ancient knowing. Soon my 3 children and I learned where and in what shape the moon would rise. 2. The children climbed and lifted rocks, disappeared and reappeared to boast of their jackpots. 1 great blue heron landed and posed for an invisible artist. A tarantula tiptoed in slow-mo after August mist. Turkey vultures pecked and pulled at a splayed jackrabbit, and we could not find it terrible. Even the red fox scat invited us to its manzyberry collage. 3. The day the children released that Pacific chorus frog back to the pond, we watched as invasive fish, stalked by previous owners to keep mosquitoes at bay, devoured by nibbles, the green flesh. While at the pond's edge, my marriage decomposed with the oak leaves. The terrible seeped in. 4. The children pulled me by the hand to a new find, rain collected in a stone basin, wide and flat with a mouth that spoke a lost language. The bedrock mortar I could see was sculpted by a human hand, and at once I knew that another woman too had loved her children here. Did they, like mine, refuse to come back when she called? Did she hum through her handwork, hold her baby to her breast, lose a way of life she counted on as a constant? And did she know it was the last time she dipped her hand in the hollow of the rock? 5. Ice laid a blanket over the pond. The bedrock mortar cradled black oak leaves. In those chaparral hills where my heart smashed open on green chert, I collected up the pieces to go. And what was never mine to begin with, I bought and sold. When I read for my book launch, I chose to leave this poem out, and I felt like it was a really crucial one. It's simple, but the message is important to me. And this poem is called I Decide Not to Stay Quiet, but What About the Kids? Family shame is a knot, black holing every nearby thread into its tangle. Let my lips snip just close enough to release us all. Seven Skirts is the core poem of my book, and it was triggered by the wearing of skirts, and it's because after this pivotal incident in my life, I wasn't able to wear skirts for a very long time because of how vulnerable it made me feel. And this series is a reimagining of skirts I've worn throughout my life as a way of reclaiming skirts for myself. It's called Seven Skirts. 1, camel suede back slit knee length. I stand at a stove in my A-line and heels, back when he still spun me to salsa trumpets and I still made him pesto gnocchi, back when he'd get angry and I'd say, sorry, sorry, back when he hugged hello from behind and I couldn't see him hit record, back when I was his wife, before I was just one of 200 upskirt videos on his hidden hard drive, dressed in my suede effort. 2. Royal blue pleated polyester above the knee. I haven't practiced once since last lesson, but trying to play like I have isn't as awkward as holding it when I really need to go. It's not that my guitar teacher isn't nice, and it's not that I'm shy, so why I don't act 8 and ask for a break I don't quite know. Stuck to a hard chair, I play until fear crescendos and I let go right in the middle of tie a yellow ribbon. Pianissimo dribble onto the carpet, not even close to keeping time. I strum louder so my teacher won't notice, and mercifully she doesn't, and then mercifully it's over. Natural as sideways can be, I twist bow, back to the waiting room, guitar at my side, hiding the drag of cold pleats on my thighs. My mom assures me that it's okay, and no, it's not noticeable at all. And 40 years later, I tell this to my children who beg me to tell it again, tell it again. I don't tell them that surely back there, my teacher is dabbing up the floor, that I'm still changing out of my mom's polite lies. 3, green and white pleated cheerleading uniform. For a late bloomer, the first raw sienna dot on underwear is a relief, and way better than the nothing that's been hanging over me since stashing that flowered box my mom handed me in preparation for becoming a young lady. So, no big deal. I mention it to my mom, and she asks if I'd like to borrow her plastic undergarment, she calls it, for just such an occasion, but I say no thanks, because it would never work under my uniform, and besides, it's my mom's. BEAGGRESSIVE, I shout in the middle of the court until I dare the cartwheel to find out if I still can. And scissoring my legs open, I flip around in that mini skirt, that maxi pad, and no big deal, I still can. 4, purple plaid wrap mini. Suburbia safe bougainvillea sidewalk, runway sachet, high hemline, legs like long levers turning heads, 19 years and all that new power. Gone. The instant that hand reaches under my hem, takes off, rounding the corner before I can scream. All that power, palmed, right out from under me. Better lower that sass a few inches. Bougainvillea blushing magenta. 5, navy blue cotton scooter skirt. Somersault, leapfrog, cartwheel, swing, roller skate, tag, jump rope, sing, walk like a crab, eat a scab, stub a toe, marks at go, do the splits, spit cherry pits, catch tadpoles in baby food jars, hang upside down on monkey bars, show the whole world my underwear and don't really give a care. Race bikes to the park, stay out past dark. Ollie, ollie, all come free. 6-year-old skipping a skirt, me. 6, stretch black travel skirt. I'm okay, I say, sitting careless and crisscross on hardwood, smoothing an invisible wrinkle in my lap, not twisting a tissue. I picture my mom's hands drying on a dish towel to press the receiver to my loose rubber band voice that says it's true this time. She tells me her annual pap smear came back negative, that she sewed 5 more sundresses to send with the ladies from church to El Salvador. I tell her about the Craigslist sofa bed. Open the box marked kitchen. Pull out the only 2 pots I didn't leave with him. Put them in the dark cupboard. 7 matte satin flowered gypsy, calf length. My mysteries stay secluded in the logic of pants until one warm coffee morning in my new bed, I roll out of dream sleep into the boldness of red poppies, the forgiveness of an elastic waistband. Iridescent clouds flounce and billow, a giggle in church, too long stifled, impossible to hold in, and loud. Prodigal daughters skip home, and I know why. All the peeking, why all the snatching? A witch-seared truth. What makes us vulnerable is what makes us divine. Every skirt a cauldron. Let's see. I'm going to read Life, Death, and Breakfast. I know how the salmon wills herself upstream against every force pushing her down. I know how the Canada goose recalls exhaustion, like South was just last year and dares reopen her wings. I know how the dandelion shoves her way through asphalt to give the barefoot boy his wish. If only that were all. I know how less sunlight than yesterday and the certainty of even less tomorrow makes the marigold decide she's done. I know how not to be is the answer. Listen, I could talk a jumper down off the Golden Gate with 1,000 reasons why one more day just to steal her place. But I know how a fallen leaf can hang in the balance for a lifetime on the pin tip of a succulent. And in the daylight savings dawn, as the sun smears her lipstick in a kiss across a cloudy forehead, a child comes up the stairs. And I know how, impossible as it seems, breakfast gets made again. You know, this past year and a half, we've all been challenged in ways that we've never been challenged before. And I like to think that all of us come from survivors. If you are here, it means that you come from survivors because every one of your ancestors had to survive for you to be here. And one of the people I looked at in my own ancestry for survival was my great-grandmother, Mary, who I didn't know, but who, by the time she was 40, had lost her husband and 5 of her 8 children. I remember stories of her beautiful garden. And this is after Alice Walker's In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. It's called In Search of Mary's Garden. By 40, my great-grandmother puts up jars of pickles beside memories of her husband and 5 of her 8 children. To support her only early frost survivors, she commits the mortal sin of missing Sunday Mass. 7 days a week, she walks to the Perry's house, washboards their trousers, irons their flour-sack dresses, rolls their pie crusts, cursives their baby Flora's birth date into her own family Bible that I will inherit. Late Sunday afternoon, long after hymnals are closed, kneelers put up. She walks home, genuflects on her dirt-floored chapel, picks warm tomatoes and green beans into a bushel, prunes and coos her beloved lilacs. Oh, those lilacs, dust purple and unnecessary, while her 3 wait, hungry for dinner. And so the message from my great-grandmother to you, no matter what you're going through, is to tend the lilacs. In many ways, this next poem is, I don't know if it's core to the book of poetry, but it's definitely essential to my philosophy as I was going through this difficult time. And it's based on inspired by the Shusankeido haiku that reads, "I kill an ant and realize my 3 children have been watching." So I think for me, I came across that, and it remained a magnetic north for me, that whatever I was doing, I was conscious that my 3 children were watching. It's called Domestic Nonviolence. It is my son who lowers the glass over the wolf spider. Gentle, gentle, not to scare or catch her hairy leg under the lip. He slides a paper under, soft, soft, lifts her out our new back door, goes back to his video game, not the shooting kind. Just a couple more. So much of my healing was inspired by the beautiful natural area around us, Water Dog Lake and Edgewood County Park. And this one is after Sunol Regional Wilderness. It's called Sunol Regional Wilderness, offers lessons in letting go of what I thought my life would look like. A woodpecker tidies acorns in its tree trunk pantry, stunting forests that might have been. Still, the never-to-be trees keep their place in our riparian conversation. Everywhere along this muddy path, the dead of winter is alive with acceptance. Through organza mist curtains, toyon berries say, well, here's red. In the greenlessness, turkey tail mushrooms say, here is the expansiveness of brown. Roots and rocks say, here is our place. At the exact point a creek says, here is no struggle at all, and tumbles a different curve. In these woods, no straight lines. Everything built to change course. Even the shortest day says, here is where we bend again toward light. Okay, just two more. And this one was inspired by, do you remember a couple years ago, after drought, we get a big deluge of rain, and then we get something called a super bloom, and then the hills, the Chaparral Hills, are covered in wildflowers that I've seen referred to as a flower-geddon. And I remember noticing all these amazing colors on the sides of the freeway, and then coming home and noticing that these wonderfully fragrant flowers were abundant over my garbage. And it seems like such a metaphor, as you know, we're all want to find the metaphor in things. And so I had to look it up, and I found that the name of it was common jasmine, which I thought was totally tragic for this beautiful flower to be called common jasmine. And when I dug a little further, I found out it had another name. And so I would like to dedicate this to all the poets here and all of you who will be reading after me, and to give gratitude for the work that poets do to give us perspective. And it's called Choices. Whether you call them common jasmine or poet's jasmine depends on your perspective. But these vines hugging the utility pole behind my waste bins have decided to super bloom my garbage. So I've made my choice. Tiny priestesses in white vestments bless the air with their holy incense. I can dump 3-week-old cat litter, wafting ammonia, and still breathe the smell of forgiveness. And before I read my final poem, I'd like to again thank you, Diane and Steve, for reaching out to me and for being able to read here. I also want to thank Eileen Casanetto, our amazing San Mateo County Poet Laureate, and her sister, C. Sofia Bartolosa, who are from Paloma Press, who published my book. I'd also like to invite you all to Belmont Poetry Night, which is next Tuesday, June 15th. We also have an open mic and really amazing poets, some of them who are here. And you can find the link to join on my website at womanuprising.com. And I mentioned this earlier, but I also want to say it for those of you who weren't here. If you have a book of poetry and you live or have lived in San Mateo County, I would love to have your book in the permanent collection at Belmont Library. For my final project as Belmont Poet Laureate, I am gathering what I believe to be the largest collection of San Mateo County poetry to donate to the library, and I'm looking for published books by San Mateo County poets, either living or passed on. I will purchase the book from you from my personal funds, or you can donate your book with your donation recognized in the book plate. And I just wanted to say that I've received many of your books that you've sent to me. Thank you, Joe and Diane, and Kathleen is here. And I'm really delighted to create this amazing library of poetry so that people, even 100 years from now, can walk into the library and delight in our words. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me through my website or Instagram at Woman Uprising. And so for my final poem, I'm going to read the last poem in the book, which is called New Sewing Project. You stitch a morning along the deckled edge of a mountain range cut with pinking shears. You heap your scraps dug from a bargain bin, Wind your bobbin, start in without a pattern. There is no pattern for your chiffon dawn. You see sequins where there'd been lies. Not one more day could you tailor that wife costume and nude lipstick of someone else's fantasy. So you get to work plying needles and machines. Stitch by stitch, you fashion a day you imagine will fit. Until at last you slip into the sky of your making, trim the last hanging threads, twirl around in the mirror. Thank you. Can't wait to hear all of your poems.
Thank you so much for that, Jackie. So pleased you were able to join us. And let's take a few moments, and if anyone would like to say anything to Jackie, go ahead and unmute yourselves.
Hi, Jackie. I'm just blown away by your poetry. It is so profound and touching and transformative and healing and all of those words. And so thank you for sharing your poetry.
I would add, so open and human and giving in a way that must have been very difficult even while they were part of the healing process, because you're sharing something that a lot of people need to hear, and it's pretty difficult to share that kind of stuff, and I really appreciated it.
Thank you, Jackie, for bringing nature into your poems so beautifully. It is a source of strength and consolation. So every poem you read was just absolutely beautiful. Thank you for all your work. Thank you.
I especially liked the sky of your own making, which kind of summarized the poems that you read. I think all of us hope for a sky of our own making. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mel.
Well, I just wanted to say that I have read your collection of poetry more than once, and even and just admired it immensely. But even so, as you read these poems, you give them more meaning yet. And just all I can say is that I'm really very grateful for it. It's a fantastic collection, and I'll cherish it.
Mirna.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it was so beautiful how you were able to take something so tragic and turn it into these beautiful words. And it's hard to do that when you have, it's hard to take something that's just benign and turn it into something so beautiful. And you took something that was, so ugly and made it so beautiful. And particularly the 7 Skirts poem was just, each one was just so poignant. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabina.
One last thing for all the males in the group, hopefully, I'd like to condemn your ex for being the jerk that he was, and I'm sure still is. So I offer that.
Amen.
Thank you. I do want to say that following the launch of my book, I felt like I would connect with women. Obviously 7 Skirts, it's, based in a woman's perspective. What I didn't expect was to get the outpouring of love from Phil and other men who took the time to respond and say how they were moved or their perspective was shifted. So thank you, all of you, everyone here, for bearing witness.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie. We're going to stop recording in a moment. Those of you in the Zoom room, please stay online if you'd like to take part in the open mic. Thanks to all our YouTube listeners. Please tune in for our next regular Coastside Poetry event on Tuesday, July 13th, when we'll welcome Palo Alto poet Charlotte Muse. That brings us to the end of tonight's recorded program. Thanks so much for joining us at Coastside Poetry and for helping to keep the lamps of poetry burning.